Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Last week, we stood on a beach in Western Australia and watched Andy Donaldson quietly re enter the world of competitive swimming. He had been gone for years, burnt out, struggling with his mental health, guiding volcano tours in Nicaragua, unsure if he would ever compete again. And then he won the Rottnest Channel swim. Not just one, dominated. That was the spark, the reawakening, the reminder that this was not over. But today we enter far rougher waters. In part two, we follow Andy into the darkest corners of endurance swimming, both physical and emotional. He became the fastest person in history to complete the Ocean 7, a series of the most grueling open water channel swims in the world. But speed was never the point. We talk about the swim that nearly broke him: 15 hours in the Molokai Channel in Hawaii, jellyfish stings, hallucinations, throat swelling, and a moment where he truly thought he might not make it. And we explore what it means to keep going anyway. And he opens up about masculinity, suffering, and how depression shaped and sharpened his mindset. We talk about swimming as meditation, as identity, as service. And we dig into the bigger question: what happens when you choose to suffer on purpose in a world that gives us every excuse not to? If part one was about stepping back into the water, this one is about what happens when the water fights back and why that battle might be the most beautiful part. Andy, why did you step away from swimming? You talked about maybe a couple of goals that you didn't accomplish. Would you mind elaborating?
Yeah, so in 2016, I stepped away from swimming. I'd had all of these dreams and aspirations to race for Scotland, to race for Great Britain, and I didn't achieve those. And I just thought, I've given what I could in the pursuit of these goals. Other aspects of my life are suffering. I don't have a partner. I haven't been focused on my job and building my career. It's time to move on. And society tells you, society tells you to go down a certain path and that you should be saving up for a house and following this route and getting a job and working in the 9 to 5, all of these things. And that pressure to conform and fit in, I certainly felt that, and I couldn't withstand that any longer. I needed to make that change. And
Quick
I did.
quick clarification. Yeah, quick clarification. You moved to Perth in 2013. but you were still training and competing to be part of the Scottish swimming team. So you were doing this remotely, I guess. Like you were living there, but you were got it. I see. So I guess you were traveling a lot between the two places as you were trying to meet those goals. You stepped away for a few years. You were focused on, let's say, mainstream goals, and then COVID happened, and yes, for some of us, COVID had the silver lining because just its intensity forced us to give up certain things and maybe pick up some other things. At some point, I believe you also took a big trip traveling, and you ended up guiding tourists around volcanoes in Nicaragua. What was that all about?
You're absolutely right. So I know we've kind of jumped around a little bit here with timelines. This was just before I got back into swimming at COVID. So I finished swimming in 2016. I've focused in on my job right through till midway through 2019. And that was a difficult time midway through 2019 because I realized that I didn't feel quite fulfilled with what I was doing and the path that I was on. And I felt like I was not becoming someone that I wanted to be. I was quite selfish. I wasn't very considerate to others. I was earning good money and on this progression pathway that I'm sure most people would see as success. But something inside me felt empty. And after a few key events, I lost a couple of friends to suicide. People that had been on the same path as me with swimming and hadn't reached those goals. People that I just would never have expected anything like that to happen to. I split up with my girlfriend at the time. I hadn't been a very good partner to her. At work, I was brought in for a review and told that I was bullying people in the office. My manager got fired and his workload got added to me, and they didn't bring on any other staff to help me. So I was just, all of these things were just like compounding on top of each other at the same time. And I was right at the end of my CPA exams or my chartered accounting exams. And I thought, well, I crashed. Something had to break, and it was me. And I really went through a struggle, mental health struggle through those following months. A lot of reflection, and yeah, it wasn't an easy time. And with a bit of with some great support and counselling and guidance from professionals and people around me, I decided to take some time out and really just think about what I wanted to be doing in life. What was my skill set? What could I bring to the world that could positively impact others? And I'd lived life in this structured environment where I'd always been working towards some kind of results, whether that was at school or university with exams, whether that was pool swimming with end of season competitions, whether that was work with budgets. Everything was always this really strict and controlled environment, and I'd never lived life where it was completely free, where I was able to wake up in the mornings and just say, well, I've got nothing on today. What am I going to do? And so I took that opportunity. I took some time out to go travel. Like, I love I love adventure. I love seeing new places, meeting new people. And that was the perfect time and opportunity to do that. So in June 2019, I packed up my bags. I traveled off and around the world. Took me to 30 different countries all over the place in the space of 10 months. And March 2020, in March 2020, I was in Central America in Nicaragua working as a volcano tour guide. And that's when I was when everything hit the fan with COVID. And it was a fairly chaotic time, but yeah, to fill in all the gaps, that's what happened. And so getting back into swimming after managing to scramble back to Western Australia during COVID, it changed my life, Kush. And it brought me down the path that I'm on now. And so to complete that full story, you know, I trained up for the Rottnest Channel swim. I got back in the pool with my old swimming squad, except, you know, it wasn't coming from this place of pressure to perform and expectations on results. It was coming from a place of enjoyment. I wanted to show people that, you know, it's not too late to revisit your goals. Anything is possible. We had an incredible team around us. You know, the swimming had really impacted my mental health and well-being, like being in the water, being part of community. And I knew that I wanted this journey to be something bigger than just me pursuing my personal goals. Like maybe it could be this platform to share powerful messages and support others. So I chose to raise money for a mental health charity. And, you know, we went on to Rottnest.
I find this part of your journey, this journey within a journey, fascinating. You know, for so long, Andy, it seemed like, you know, you were, again, this trained athlete, structured, planned, focused on all these goals, you know, living life perhaps to a T, organized. And now you took this big trip, traveling to different places, doing things that you were not even close to doing when you were living your prior life. And how long did you travel for?
I was traveling for 10 months. So between
Lovely.
June 2019 and March 2020.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I have taken some long trips like that, and they have been honestly transformational to me with some of those gifts that keep coming back. And, you know, I'm just curious, like, was there perhaps a moment in that journey, maybe Latin America, maybe somewhere else quieter, where you, I don't know, because the way of life in those places is so different. The definition of success is so different, that enabled you to reframe some of your identity, your goals, maybe even your values?
It's a great question, Kush. And yes, there's certainly eye openers as to what, that framing of success. You know, I think in the West, society pushes on us through movies or whatever else it is that, you know, you have this big house and you live by the beach or in this beautiful suburb and have this big family and nice sports car, all these kind of things. And when I traveled, it was nothing like that. You know, people couldn't care less if you had a fancy watch on or like a Gucci belt or whatever it is. Like, it was all about connection and experiences, storytelling, sharing life and all of these amazing moments together. People didn't have much. Like, I traveled I was quite intentional with what I was doing. I tried to travel to places that, you know, were perhaps a little bit more off the beaten path and less traveled. You know, I went to places such as Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia. I went down to Israel and in the Palestinian territories. I went to Ukraine, and you know we can't go to these places now. You know, and just saw a different way of life. Latin America, you mentioned it as well. Like things just felt more relaxed. There wasn't this pressure to conform or make money and go down this path that we've perhaps it's been pushed on us that that's the norm. And it was a simpler life, and people were happy. You know, one of the most impressive places I've ever been was Nepal, and hiking up through some of the mountains in the north of or in the Himalayas, you're in the highest mountains in the world, and the most beautiful valleys and sceneries and all sorts.
Did you do the Annapurna trek or the Everest Base Camp trek?
Annapurna, yeah,
Nice, very nice.
oh, absolutely stunning. Life was simple up there. You didn't have phone reception. You didn't have your emails coming in all the time. You hiked. You know, you'd finish off each night, and there wasn't too many amenities. People were still fetching water and carrying it up to their villages, grazing the land, all these kind of things. It's hard work, but everyone is smiling. Everyone's having a great time, and all of the communities are still together. Like families aren't split up, and there's that connection and closeness that I think is in some ways lost in our current world in Western society. So yeah, it was a huge eye opener, and you know I live on the other side of the world from most of my family. I'm very fortunate that I had my sister here, but my family came through my swimming. That's where I found my community, and I never really recognized the importance of that until I started going down this path of ultramarathon swimming. And you know, it played a huge role in that Rottnest Channel swim journey. I was able to go on, and I ended up actually winning that swim in 2021 against a pretty stacked field. Guys that have gone on to race for their country and race at the Olympic Games. Like I think I finished about 7 minutes ahead of the next person, which over that distance is quite a lot.
That is insane indeed, because you took this huge break from swimming. Many of us think here that, you know, you take 2 weeks off your sport and you're going to lose so much. You took years off your swimming, and you came back and you won this iconic race.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that yeah, you must have taken Perth by storm.
Well, that's it. Like, so you know, all of these other guys, they've been training diligently for years, no breaks in their swimming. Coming in, they were coming in as like massively the heavy favourites, and here's this washed up guy that's not been in the water for 3 years. He's spent the last 10 months drinking and partying, traveling around the world, working as a volcano tour guide. The expectations were low. The pressure was low. And we had this very good team. We identified quickly, like my coach and I, my coach Owen Carroll, we identified that we wouldn't be able to out-train them. You know, they've been training far harder and longer than us. Maybe we could be smarter than them. maybe we could look for all of these different 1% and take this swim in a way that hasn't been done before. And so that really reflected in how we approached things with our training. We were very specific with paces that we wanted to train at, ideally making something like a 1:12 per 100-meter pace very easy and replicable over the course of 4 hours. What could we do to address other challenges like the fatigue that you experience towards the end of a swim, or the mindset aspect, or nutrition? Could we do that smarter than others? And all of these ended up working. And then as an added bonus or an added incentive, this swim was raising money for a mental health charity, a local mental health charity. You're doing this challenge for something bigger. And when times get tough, having that to draw upon, having this extra motivation, this why, like, it's bigger than you. Like, you can do this. You do this for them as well. There's all of these factors and aspects all weaving in together that, in order to make this phenomenal performance and special swim that resulted in a win, and quite a big one as well.
Did you actually go in to the race with that goal of winning, Andy? Did it surprise you? Because you have been away from the sport for so long, and I mean, a lot of us would have been quite content with just making an appearance and maybe completing the race, which honestly is a big goal, right? Just completing a big race like that is a huge goal. Where did you find the confidence, or maybe even the gumption, to go for the win? Or did you surprise yourself?
Gumption is a great word, isn't it? It was a goal. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. Belief in myself, belief that I was good enough. That's been something I've always struggled with through most of my life. I do think, to quite a large extent, that was my biggest block from going on and achieving those pool swimming goals that I had, and my aspirations to race for my country, that I didn't believe I was good enough to do it. I wanted to change that narrative. And for me, Rottnest was really an opportunity to come at a challenge with a fresh mindset, with new energy. If we could achieve this goal of winning it, that would be great. But it wasn't the be all or end all. Rather, I wanted to get into the best possible shape that I could ever be in, give myself the best possible chance of success, really have nothing left on the table when I walked out. And if I could do that, then, anything above that was a bonus. And, I would be very content. That was the whole idea of the core message that we wanted to share with that swim, that, it's not too late to pursue your dreams. If we could pull off this incredible performance, I truly did believe that I could win this swim and I could beat these guys. Geez, it wasn't an easy ride though. Like, there were a lot of times in the lead up where I'd thought to myself, I'm out of my depth here, or I couldn't sleep. I've bitten off way more than I could chew. But that's the power of the team. Your team are your safety net, because you're not always going to be feeling confident and on top of the world every day. you sometimes need those people around you to help you, to keep you encouraged, to be there for you when you're going through your tough times, and pick you up and encourage you to keep on going. And that's what they were for me. And so to have them from the start of the journey, right the way through to the end, it made it special, because this wasn't just a solo win. It was a team effort, and you had these people to share that experience and celebrate with at the end of the day.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24/7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. Andy, yes, the power of low expectations, the power of enjoying the process, and maybe to some degree, maybe not even caring, but not caring because you're so loving the process. I think. And thanks also for sharing this bit about your mental health journey, about, some of the crises that you have gone through, a lot of us gone through, about not recognizing one's self-worth. So I want to move forward a bit. Again, to the outsider, it seems that once you came back, you went from success to further success. And, we haven't even talked about the big seven swims, the ones that you're most known for. But these swims, the effort, the wins, do you now finally feel like, has it now changed your relationship with pain and self-worth?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kush. It has. It has. And I think through this whole journey, it's been that shift in perspective. You could have achieved all of these incredible things and still think of yourself as a failure. It's all up to your own perspective. Like, our perspective is our own truth. I could have gone to 2 Olympic Games, and just because I've not won a gold at them, see myself as a failure. Whereas to most people, making the Olympics is like beyond their wildest dreams. And it's not easy. Like, it's very easy for me to sit here and tell you, it's perspective, like, shift your minds, we're all enough.
Imagine that kid from the mountains of Nepal getting to the Olympics. That would like raise the spirits of like the whole country.
Yeah. Well, then that's it. Like, it's all perspective. I've grown up with such placing so many high expectations on myself. In a sense, I am a perfectionist, and I'm trying to work on that and be more comfortable with anything that's, well, I mean, what is perfect? Like, it's subjective. Like, it doesn't. You're in control of the wheel, and you can choose to work on these things. And I think going through these paths, what we've talked about, going and seeing what life is like in different cultures, that challenges your vision of how life should be. Or with swimming, I thought success was going and racing for my country, and life's taking me down a different path. It's taking me down ultra marathon swimming, and I have done many swims. Like you said, we haven't talked about them yet. The Ocean 7, the 7 toughest channel swims in the world. I was fortunate enough to go down that path and break a few world records for the fastest swims. My greatest success was not one of those swims, but actually a swim called the Molokai Channel, where pretty much everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And we had targeted a time of under 10 hours, and I actually ended up swimming an extra 10 Ks, an extra 10 kilometers, and about 6 hours over that time. But it was a swim that changed my life and became my greatest ever success because of what happened during that journey. All of this adversity that we'd encountered, unforecasted storms, being sick and dizzy, swimming through the night and throwing up, and managing to find a way to keep pushing forward, facing head-on currents and basically going nowhere for hours at a time, and finding the strength and working together as a team to not give up and keep going forwards, and eventually inch our way to a successful crossing. Your perspective of success, I think, through these experiences and through adversity and having your eyes opened, it changes. It's whatever we want it, whatever we want it to be. And I think for me, I look back at my swimming career, I would not change a single thing that's happened to me. I would not change a single thing that's happened to me. Everything that I've done, I feel like I'm in a very fortunate position where I've accomplished things that I could never have even dreamed of. I had successes that, I would never have fathomed as a kid growing up in the west of Scotland. I'm very, very content, and that's a very fortunate position to be in. And, you asked me right at the beginning of this call, where are you at? If we answered it in terms of physical location, but in terms of life, swimming, there's not many personal goals that I have at this point in time that I want to pursue. It's more like I feel like I'm in this fortunate position where I've achieved more than I could ever have dreamed. And it's now a sense of, how can I use this platform that I have and my swimming successes and what I'm able to do through my sport in order to help others.
Andy, great segue into talking about the Ocean 7. And obviously we don't have time to talk about each of these swims is so different. And so has been, I am sure, the planning, the preparation, and the execution. But your answer on how the swim in the quote unquote warm and placid waters in Hawaii, bringing on the toughest challenge. I'm just shocked hearing that, because all these swims take place in these really diverse places, different conditions. And to the outsider, it might seem that the Hawaii swim might have been, let's say, what they call a softball, like the easy one. And knowing you a little bit, I'm sure it wasn't lack of preparation. Was it just Mother Nature that brought conditions that you just did not expect?
Pretty much. So I'll take a tiny bit of a step back just to provide some context, and then get talking about the Molokai Channel. So after Rottnest, had this success, discovered that I'm not bad at this stuff, this long distance swimming, that I wanted to continue and do more goals, achieve more goals, test myself. And we'd raised, I think, $12,000 for this mental health charity. So I saw an opportunity to combine purpose with sport. And really that was the genesis or the beginning of what went on to become this challenge to swim the Ocean's 7, the world's 7 toughest channel swims. And I set out to do them all in the space of a year, which at that time had never been done. And do them, try to break as many records as possible along the way, partly for the challenge and my own aspirations, but also because I thought, right, if we're raising money for charity, how can we bring as much noise to this as possible? So I wanted to be quite outlandish with my goals. There was probably a fair bit of naivety in there as well. So, but that was the background. And so these swims, they're marathon swims all around the world, places like England to France, so the English Channel, the North Channel, which is Ireland to Scotland, the Cook Strait between the islands of New Zealand, the Molokai Channel, which is between two of the islands, Oahu and Molokai, over in Hawaii, the Strait of Gibraltar, Spain to France, the Catalina Channel, Santa Catalina Island back to Los Angeles over in America, and the Suguru Strait between Honshu and Hokkaido in Japan. And so they're all marathon in distance, so 10 miles and up. That's the shortest. The longest was the Molokai Channel, 44 kilometers, so about 30 miles. And I'd got off to this absolute ripper of a start. So in the English Channel, I broke the British record, set one of the fastest times ever. In the North Channel, aside from basically turning into an ice cube, again, swam the second fastest time ever. In the Cook Strait, broke the world record, went a time that was maybe about 90 minutes slower than the Inter-Islander ferry. Like the Kiwis were just going mad. It was all over the news. So I was coming into this next one, the Molokai Channel, with a fair bit of hype and expectation around me. I had all these wins. I was coming in fresh, hot, and I kind of fancied myself. And I thought to myself, right, let's go for the world record is 12 hours. I reckon I could get across here in 10 or under. And so that's where my mind was. And funnily enough, I'd been speaking to another swimmer that you've had on the podcast here, Sarah Thomas, and very incredible woman. If you don't know much about Sarah, check her out. She's one of the greatest of all time in ultramarathon swimming, has done phenomenal things. And I remember something that she'd said to me, which was along the lines of, just be ready for the day that Mother Nature tests you. Like, Mother Nature will humble you at some point. There's no doubt about it. Just be ready. And on those days, it's going to show you just how much you want this and really what you're made of. And so back in Hawaii, I dove in. We started at 7 p.m. at night. Sun, beautiful, like tropical island. Sun's going down. And I'm swimming along and I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're on here. I've got this. And, like we were talking about before, like everything that could have gone wrong pretty much went wrong. We set off and quickly discovered that the currents were pushing the wrong way, and brought my pace down from what is typically around 4.5 to 5 kilometers an hour, maybe down to under 3. So, as a swimmer that's swimming 44 kilometers, that's hours. That's adding hours onto your time. And that's just completely out of your control. The waves were rough, the swells were high, about 3 meters high. I was getting thrown around like a rag doll on a washing machine. And I was throwing up. I was disorientated. We were swimming through the night. My kayaker had forgotten to bring his lights, so he was like this silhouette of darkness out there. And I just felt so isolated. The boat was sitting maybe 100 meters away, and they turn off all the lights because they don't want to attract in the sharks. And I was just having the most rough swim known to mankind. I was really in a bad place. And I remember distinctly one of the toughest moments of my life. We were maybe 7 or 8 hours in, and I was nowhere near finishing the swim. I was nowhere near the other side. And I got this, every 15 minutes, I caught up with the boat. I would catch up with the boat. I'd get updates from the team on how I was performing. They'd pass me a drink, and we would communicate on a whiteboard. But this time, Jay, my mentor and coach, he leans over to the side and he's like, "Andy, I'm really sorry, but in the last 2 hours, you've not gone anywhere. You've traveled maybe two or 3 kilometers."
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, holy crap, what? And so the currents were so bad that we were just basically zigzagging around like this, just getting pushed side to side and not making really any real progress towards Oahu. And so, being an accountant, I was doing the maths in my head, 1.5 kilometers an hour, or it would be taking me 4 minutes to swim 100 meters. A far cry from the 1 minute 12 pace that I'd be holding in most of my other swims. And I was doing the maths and I was thinking, geez, that's 1.5 k's an hour to swim 40 something kilometers. Jesus, I can't keep going in this. Like, how it was like this dagger to the heart. And my mind started racing, like, why am I doing this? How am I going to keep pushing forward? What happens if I fail? We only have so much budget. Like, I can't come back here and do this again. We have aspirations to try to do this all in the space of a year. Like, your mind is racing, and it's very hard not to react in those moments. And so, yeah, it was a really tough journey, and I had to do a lot of soul searching. I'd never been pushed out of my comfort zone as much as I had in that point in time. It was just very exposing. And so, I think what ended up happening, I remember flipping on my back and just looking up at the sky. And it's pitch black. You're a pin drop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and there's no light, and there's just stars as far as the eye can see, just scattered across the sky. I slowed down. I tried to slow my thinking down, taking some deep breaths. I looked to the side. I saw the team out there on the boat. They're here with me every step of the way. I thought about my why. Why am I doing this? Why should I keep going forward? Yes, we had the mental health piece and trying to raise money for mental health. We had, the messaging around what we learned along this journey. How can we inspire others to pursue goals? I thought about my family, the people that supported me through thick and thin, through my life, through this journey. My grandfather, who has been a big source of inspiration to me, someone that struggled with mental health as well, with their mental health as well. And, all of these things, that was my why. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm going to keep going for them. I'll find a way. And however long it takes, just one stroke in front of the other, we'll find a way through this. And sure enough, as a team, we made a decision to try push further north. Instead of staying to the same line, we managed to escape the currents. It was going to add an extra 10 kilometers onto our swim, but that was better than swimming nowhere. And we really just broke that challenge down into manageable chunks. You don't climb Everest and look to the summit. You just look 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, and you eventually get there. And that's what we did in that swim. And it didn't get easier. The conditions worsened. There was this unforecasted storm that we ended up swimming into, but we pushed on and together as a team ended up finishing and getting across to Oahu in just shy of 16 hours. So way longer than I'd ever experienced before. I'd never been in the water for more than 9 hours before. So this was way out of the comfort zone. But, it's like life. You get hit with these unexpected challenges, and you learn more from those than you do from the good times.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this. Andy, what an incredible story. Like, I was picturing you on your back, with having these flashbacks, going back to your family. What a powerful moment. Appreciate you sharing and taking us there. You found the mental resolve, this, absolute apex resolve to keep pushing through. But I am curious as to the physical suffering, like what you were going through. I believe this one, you had to visit the hospital. because your body was so depleted. Can you just talk for a second about the kind of physical suffering and the pain you had to endure to complete?
Of course, of course. So, with these swims, they are, ultra marathon in distance. So you're putting yourself through duress for 10 plus hours at any given time. It's not like cycling where you get down hills and you can let your legs relax for a second, or if you're running, you can stop and walk and it's easier. When you're swimming, you are out in the elements, and if you stop and the current's going the other way, you go backwards. So it's very physically demanding. You are having to keep the fire churning. That's why you have the feeds during your swims. But it's one stroke out, one arm in front of the other, one arm in front of the other, one arm in front of the other, and you feel the physical toll on your body. But one thing that always has stuck with me, and it was a quote from one of my friends who's a chiropractor here in Perth. He said to me, the body's incredible. The body's capable of incredible things, and it's our mind that will always give up before the body. Our minds will always give up before our body does. And so, that's so incredibly powerful. And this swim, I put my body through the ringer. Longest swim, duration-wise, longest swim, distance-wise. I was disorientated and dizzy, thrown about in the swells. So I was physically sick and thrown up. And by the time I got to Oahu, I was absolutely wrecked. My body just been smashed up. Throat was like razor blades, and like body was in agony. Just felt like lead. Traps are on fire. In my throat, my uvula in my throat had just gone and blown up like a golf ball. So it was making it very difficult to breathe or to swallow. And so we had to take the boat back to the docks. And at that point in time, the team had said, all right, we need to get you to the doctors. So went into the hospital, sat up on the chair, lying back. Doctor comes in, one of those walk-in centers. He's like, so how can I help you today? And I said, I've just been for a swim. And my uvula has like blown up. He said, oh yeah, okay, where were you swimming from? I was like, I've just swum over from Molokai. And he's like, what? So yeah, I've just this morning I just swum over from Molokai. And he's like, just 1 second there. And he's like, John, come here in a second. He's like, this guy's just swum over from Molokai. And then, like, he's just in absolute disbelief, and like he's like, hey, Sandra, come over here.
And and the funny thing is that just swimming in normal, pleasant conditions, doing that swim is, if that is epic enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, like absolutely. I mean, yeah, anybody would have been just equally agog.
So they're all there, and the doctor's looking in my mouth. It's all inflamed. The uvula has just gone. And the doctor said to me, like, I asked the doctor, like, what would have caused this? And he said, oh, well, son, I think you've swallowed a jellyfish. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. I think you must have swallowed a jellyfish, and you've had an allergic reaction to it, and it's just caused your uvula to go. Poof.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
thinking, Jesus, no, no way, no way. And I thought, well, yeah, like I don't know. I don't exactly remember swimming with my mouth open and something going in. But anyway, he put me on an IV drip, and we had all these antihistamines mixed in there, and I fell asleep for about 90 minutes. But sure enough, the word had got out to my family, and someone had put it up on social media, and next thing, Andy Donaldson Andy Donaldson swallowed a jellyfish in the Molokai Channel. I'm thinking, oh my god.
I can't think of a headline more
More engaging or captivating.
More engaging, more what they call, that stops the scroll.
It's one of those hooks, isn't it?
It really is. Except that it's completely true. It's just a fact. It's just a headline that is completely true.
And so I will always attest. I'll say that I don't remember it happening. I mean, I think when you're swimming for that sort of distance, you zone out anyway. So if it did, I probably would never remember it. But Pandora's box was opened, and it's out there, and
amazing.
Whether it happened or not, who knows? Probably didn't, but who knows?
Andy, we are running out of time. I have maybe a couple more questions. Can we stay on?
Yeah, I'll probably need to leave in about 5 minutes.
Okay, got it. Let me ask you this. Jumping ahead, you have accomplished so many things, so many maybe achievements beyond what you had imagined for yourself. And I'm just curious, are you still out there looking to prove yourself to yourself? Or have you found moments of stillness that still provide you peace?
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together, training, aging, mindset, and awe, you will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah, that's a very powerful question, Kush, and especially someone that has spent a lot of time in life trying to prove myself, or lacking in self-belief or confidence. This journey has been transformational for me, and that perspective has shifted away from results and records more to the journey itself. How did you conduct yourself during these journeys? How did you respond to adversity and adapt when challenges arose? Did you give it everything that you could? And that's certainly where I sit nowadays, where it's about the process rather than the outcome. And so when I look back at my swimming career, I am very content. I am so happy with what I've been able to do. Most of these challenges and swims have been beyond my wildest ever dreams. So yeah, it's less about proving myself. I think moving forwards, if I look at the future, yes, there are swims I would love to go and do, and I think you'd be mad if you said that you didn't want to go and break records or anything like that. Like it's a nice thing to have, but there are more, like there are, for me in my where I am in my point in life, and there are other goals and important things that I'd like to focus on. And so when it comes to swimming, yes, I have goals, but they'll always be tied ideally to some form of purpose. And it's how I can use this platform that I have to support important causes and help others. So yeah, I think there's a way to combine the two, but I don't feel that urge, or pressure is maybe not the right word, that desire to do what I've to do to pursue personal goals in the same way that I maybe did 5 years ago.
Andy, it is evident indeed that you have almost spread your fulfillment, because now it's not just about Andy and Andy's huge goals in sport. It's also about the contribution you're making to the lives of others. And that, I think, diffusion seems to have given you back so much in your pursuit of calmness, stillness, and maybe even longevity. Just final question, Andy, which is a fun one. After these huge epic swims, where you're likely consuming all kinds of hacked nutrition, what is one normal meal that you look forward to when you're back on land, recovered, maybe out of the hospital, if you had to go to one at least?
Oh, Kush, I love this question. And the short answer is whatever you're craving during the challenge. And that always changes for me. So, when I did the English Channel, I was craving, it's going to sound quite funny, I was craving a Nando's after the English Channel. After the North Channel, I really wanted fish and chips. And the guys on the boat were holding up signs saying things like, hurry up, the chippy is closing. Like, you got to go faster. But I would probably say my favorite is getting a good steak after one of these swims. I've done that on a number of occasions. Strait of Gibraltar, Subaru Strait in particular, they spring to mind. And it's funny, like when you're in the water, you use whatever tool that you can that you have in your disposal to keep you going and give you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Food's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Is a massive one for me. And I'm thinking about, what am I going to eat when I get here to the finish line? Like, what have I got to look forward to? And big juicy steak.
Yeah.
The side. Yeah.
And what would you wash it down with?
I cup of tea is no. I actually I have quite a kid's taste palate, so like a milkshake or something.
Well, you're allowed to have tea, milkshake, and maybe a lager or two. I mean, you have burnt enough calories.
earn the right to kind of let your hair down and enjoy something different. So yeah, I love that, and life's to be enjoyed as well. You gotta, if you work hard and you don't celebrate those moments, then that's
and those moments they taste even sweeter when you have worked hard as a corollary, and your swims are a testament. Andy, it's been amazing having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Kush. It's been an absolute pleasure and lovely to meet you and chat and really dive into some deep conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So thank you.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless. Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.